Hello, everyone. Welcome to the International Symposium that asks an important question, that is, what are the benefits of learning multiple languages? The title of my presentation is Multilingualism and Curricula, Reflection from the Point of View of Plurilingualism. I'm Nishiyama of Kyoto University and the French Language Education Society of Japan. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm currently teaching at a foreign language education course at the Graduate School of Human and Environmental Studies, Kyoto University. I'm also the president of the French Language Education Society of Japan. My specialty is French pedagogy, foreign language pedagogy, and language policy. Over the years, I have published several books as shown on this slide. Their titles are What is Intercultural Education? Cross-Cultural Education in Globalization, English Education in Elementary School Around the World, and in Japan. These are all based on papers presented at international conferences. I have published some translations from French as well. Europe in Multilingualism, Welcome to the Bilingual World, and Languages in Europe. These are works written by French linguists and sociolinguists. All books are relevant in discussing multilingualism. Today, I would like to discuss multilingualism and curricula. Of the two components of multilingualism and curricula, I would first like to look into multilingualism. In my presentation, I will primarily focus on multilingual education. Now, what is multilingual education? In this presentation, it is defined as a system of education that involves not only English but also other foreign language education. There are some terminologies to be noted related to multilingual education. That is, multilingualism and plurilingualism. Are there any differences between the two words? Multilingualism is a social system or an organization where multiple number of languages coexist, or it refers to a language policy that promotes such arrangements. So it is focused on society or organization. On the other hand, plurilingualism is about an individual who can command several languages or educational policy aimed at promoting such skills in individuals. Hence, multilingualism and plurilingualism are different in that the former focuses on the society while the latter focuses on individuals. In my presentation today, I would like to focus more on the latter, which is plurilingualism. I would attempt to discuss multilingual education from the vantage point of plurilingual skills in individuals. Another piece of the theme today is curriculum, which I will also be discussing in my presentation. We use the term curriculum very often. But what exactly does it mean? Actually, its definition is rather vague, and people may have different definitions for this specific word. So I would first like to explore its definitions. As we discuss the definition of curriculum, I would like to refer to CEFR, or Common European Framework of Reference. Many of you think about the 6 levels of language skills defined by CEFR, or some of you may think about the can-do system. Common Reference Framework and the can-do system that has language skills descriptors are the components of CEFR. In addition to all these, there are many other important elements in it. One of them is the Chapter 8 of CEFR. I'm not sure how many of you have read the entire document of CEFR, but Chapter 8 points out some very important points on curriculum. It is specifically about diversification in curriculum in 8-4. It says that curriculum defines the path and journey of a learner. A path for a learner. In other words, the process is a learner goes through when learning a foreign language. According to CEFR, the process of foreign language study occurs not only in school classrooms, but also after school years. In other words, it is not a process of limited duration, but a lifelong learning process. This means that the learning process is not divided by the school years, but goes across the entire school education from elementary school to middle school to high school and perhaps to higher education. Or the idea that language education is linked to other academic subjects is also related to the concept as defined within CEFR. Now, what do we have to do to promote multi-language education in terms of teaching and learning? Needless to say, we have to build a system that allows students to learn multiple number of languages. That is important. Ever since Japanese universities were installed under the new education law in 1947, they are required to teach the second foreign languages to their students. So university students in Japan learn a second foreign language in addition to English. Some universities offer a wide range of second foreign language courses, while others offer limited options. At the university I teach, students can choose from a range of foreign languages, including German, French, Chinese, Korean, Italian, Spanish, Russian, and Arabic as a second foreign language, in addition to English. There are universities and colleges that offer a narrower options. For example, some may offer only German and or Chinese. There are some universities where the second foreign language is not mandatory. Either case, there are options to choose from in most cases. And some languages are more popular than others. So there are some variations in terms of the level of popularity. Now, why learning only English is not good enough? There is a belief that one does not have to learn another language when he or she can already use English. I believe many people is of this view. It may be interesting, however, to take a different vantage point. Can one really understand the entire world if that person can speak English? Can English capability ensure one to fully understand the world? They say English can be understood anywhere in the world. Is it really the case? Let me give you an example. For a non-Japanese, Japan is a country where people don't speak fluent English. They can't get themselves across in English in Japan. I have heard many foreigners say that they expected many Japanese people to be able to speak English better. There are many other countries and regions where people are not fluent in English, even though English may be spoken in a wide area in the world. It doesn't mean that it is not necessarily a universal language that can be understood by anyone. The worldview one may obtain through the language of English is not necessarily universal either. An impression of a world obtained through the linguistic viewpoint of English may not be the same as the one seen through another language. This may imply that the world captured in a non-English language may be very different from the world understood in English. So it is important to understand that a foreign language is not equal to English. In Japan, it is often viewed that a national language is always Japanese and a foreign language is always English. Everything is in Japanese when in Japan and everything is in English once abroad is a dominant view in this country. So again, English is not a synonym of foreign language. Learning a non-English foreign language can also help enhance the sense of tolerance to different languages and cultures. A learner can be more open to differences and diversity. So one can learn a foreign language not necessarily as a communication tool, but as a tool to gain an experience in something new and different. In this regard, learning a non-English foreign language can be quite meaningful. There are a number of advantages in learning non-English foreign language, but I would not go into the details in this presentation. Now, is learning a second language along with English enough? The answer is not no. Under the concept of plurilingualism, learning several languages is not enough. Of course, it is important to learn a second foreign language in addition to English, but doing so does not suffice. They say it is important to share and transfer interlingual skills. Again, it is important to transfer a skill in one language to that in another. This again is discussed in CEFR Chapter 8. CEFR defines plurilingualism as follows. Communicative competencies one has across several languages are a body of skills, however complex and compositive they may be. Suppose one could speak several languages at different skill levels. His linguistic skills are compositive and interlinked. And these skills together constitute one body of competence. In other words, communicative skills in a given language is not distinctively separated from that in another language. Suppose someone learned English and Chinese. One's language command in English is not separated from his command in Chinese. Plurilingual command is to integrate all the communicative competencies one has across all the languages one has learned. And the goal of plurilingualism is to foster such competencies. It is important to note that communicative competencies across all the languages one has, a command of including one's mother tongue needs to be integrated. However, the levels of fluency may be different. When one can use several languages, that doesn't necessarily mean that he or she has same fluency levels across different languages. He may have a better command of a given language over the other. Or he may be better at reading in a given language, while he may be better at speaking in another. As discussed, the level of mastery may vary across different languages, but it is important to interlink all the skills and competencies across different languages. Now let's discuss transfer of communication skills. What exactly does it mean to achieve interlingual transfer? Transversality of linguistic knowledge, know-how, and learning skills are the three elements pointed out by CEFR. Let's look at one at a time. By interlingual transfer of knowledge, we mean, for example, the use of knowledge one has earned learning English. when one is additionally learning French. Vocabulary in English can also help because there are certain similarities between French and English words. Some words are spelled the same, though it may be pronounced differently. In some cases, the word can mean different things. There are some grammatical similarities as well between English and French. However, if you compare English and Japanese, they are very different in grammars. But French and English are quite similar in terms of their grammars. So a learner should take advantage of his knowledge in English vocabulary and grammar when learning French. Let's look at interlingual transfer of knowledge and know-how. CEFR discusses learners' intercultural skills or cross-cultural skills gained through foreign language study. That is, cross-cultural skills gained through a foreign language study can be transferred in other intercultural settings. See, for example, one's cultural understanding of the US or UK or any other English-speaking country gained through his studying English can then be transferred to his learning French. Let me give you an example. Having studied English, a learner decides to study abroad in an English-speaking country. The learner would gain cross-cultural skills when studying in that English-speaking country. And the skills thus acquired can then be transferred when that person studies French or when she interacts with French speakers, for example. Transfer of know-how also includes the transfer of bridge between one's mother culture and a target culture for another target culture. This may be complicating. For those of you born in Japan, your mother culture is Japanese culture. And in a larger sense, a learner is a bridge between his mother culture and a target culture, for example. An English-speaking culture of the United States or the UK or whatever. A learner starts from one's mother culture towards a target culture. And when that person studies French, he or she can use that bridging function. That person has acquired learning the first foreign language. The third point is the coordination of learning ability. This specifically refers to the transfer of a strategy one employed in learning one foreign language to another. For example, the method of study can be transferred. Different people prefer different strategies and tactics when learning something. Some may want to spend 15 minutes every day, while others may want to study 2 hours once a week. There may be people who want to build word lists when trying to learn new language, while others prefer to learn by jotting down the words over and over. So there is a wide range of different ways to learn. So the method of learning one liked in learning a given language can then be transferred when she's learning a second language. Or one style of autonomous learning can then be transferred when learning another language. Autonomous learning is different from learning from a teacher in a classroom. Rather, it is a way to learn things based on one's schedule, one's planning, using one's preferred method of learning. The style of autonomous learning she used learning her first language, which may be English, for example, can then be applied when she learns a second or a third foreign language. Suppose a learner studied a foreign language by taking advantage of a radio program when she was studying English. She can also learn French doing the same, for example. She may opt to use another language course on radio as well. So learning at one's pace by one's preferred method is the transfer of style of autonomous learning. So these are the three elements of interlingual transfer. So why does this interlingual transfer occurs? It occurs to integrate linguistic competencies across different languages into one body of competencies. In the past, linguistic learning skills gained in one language were considered to be distinctively different from the skills in another language. For example, when learning English, the learner studies only English without referencing to the knowledge one gained learning Japanese or French. Likewise, a learner focuses on French when learning French without referencing to one's knowledge in English. Plurilingualism, however, encourages to connect all the knowledge across different languages. While they are interlinked, this is not to say that one does not distinctively learn a given language. Rather, plurilingualism encourages interlingual transfer to enhance effective learning in each foreign language. This leads to an understanding that one's mother tongue plays an important role as well. Plurilingualism attaches importance to one's mother tongue for foreign language study as well. Now that we have covered the concept of plurilingualism, let's now consider pedagogy that can facilitate interlingual transfers for better interlinguages of skills. Under the banner of plurilingualism, 4 pedagogical approaches have been introduced to date that are approaches centered on awakening to languages, integrated education, adjacent languages, and intercultural or cross-cultural skills. Let's first look at the concept of awakening to languages. This approach focuses on nurturing awareness for language linguistic diversity and functions. In other words, this approach focuses not on language learning, but learning about languages. One learns about languages. It is important to raise awareness for languages in this approach. One of the goals of this approach is to encourage learners to familiarize themselves with different languages. And another goal is to lower the hurdles against a new language. There is a book written by Dr. Oyama on awakening to languages. Next, on integrative language learning. In this approach, foreign language is connected to other academic subjects. You may want to think that it is similar to CLIL, or Content and Language Integrated Learning. Though similar, they are different because integrative learning education only partially teach other academic subjects in a foreign language. Next, on education facilitating understanding of related languages. This is a method to learn several languages from the same linguistic family. For example, Romance languages are the languages that derive from Latin, such as French, Italian, and Spanish. And learners learn 2 Romance languages concurrently. You may wonder if the learner gets confused learning 2 new languages at the same time. But this method capitalizes on the similarities of the 2 languages. The goal of this approach is not to foster 4 skills in equal weights. Rather, it focuses on the receptive skills in comprehending written languages, or reading or to speak. So really focusing on fostering focused skills in reading or receptive understanding. In discussing foreign language education in Japan, it is often emphasized that 4 skills needs to be equally fostered. But this specific pedagogical approach focuses on reading skills. And lastly, on cross-cultural education. Through foreign language study or through non-language study, one can be exposed to a different culture. Specifically, a learner compares and analyzes one's own culture and a target culture. A Japanese who is learning French would compare Japanese and French cultures or analyze French culture from a Japanese point of view. The goal is not to judge which culture is better. The learner would also study how one's own culture is viewed by the people in the target culture. It is just like looking into a mirror to learn how one is viewed by the target. And again, the learner can realize how he or she is looking at the target culture. A person studying French will reflectively explore how oneself is looking at the French culture. So cross-cultural education may occur when one is learning a foreign language related to that cross-cultural setting. But either case, the focus here is the comparative analysis between one's own culture and the target culture by exploring how one looks at the other or how one is looked by the other. The learner tries to understand one's own culture in relative terms. How can we practice plurilingualism in classrooms? I would like to point out 2 things. From a curriculum point of view, we need to create a cross-curricular practice of plurilingualism. This means all language lessons from elementary school to high school in Japanese, English, and in other foreign languages must be interlinked. Unfortunately, language studies, including Japanese lessons, have been compartmentalized and separated from one another. And there has not been much coordination between them. From a curricular point of view, it is important to interlink all the language study elements across the curriculum. If it is difficult to take a systematic approach, you may want to consider interlinking different language lessons by using an educational material that can help integrate different languages. Over the years, my colleague and I created a grammar textbook for French learners to promote plurilingualism, albeit partially. Let me show you how the book is constructed. This is lesson 2 of the book. As you can see, it looks like a regular grammar book. However, sample sentences are relatively difficult compared to other books. One lesson is consisted of 4 pages. The 4th page of lesson 2 is particularly related to plurilingualism. On this page is the Awakening to Language quiz. As discussed already, Awakening to Languages is an approach to plurilingualism aiming at raising awareness about languages. The column on this page also is cultural aspects of France. So this is more about cross-cultural education approach. It may be a bit difficult to read from this slide, but French and Japanese cultures and societies are compared and analyzed. Here, for example, the theme is separation of religion from the states. as well as different systems of two countries, are discussed. It asks if Japan is a republic. Japan is constitutional monarchy. Because Japan has emperor and imperial family, it is not a republic. Whereas France is a republic. So political systems are compared between the two countries. Let's look a bit further into plurilingualism and education. Under plurilingualism, mutual understanding of adjacent languages or relative languages are discussed. Some words in English and some French words are introduced on this slide. And you can see some similarities between the two languages. Some words are similar. And students are encouraged to wonder how and why some words are similar between the two languages. So this is how we try to facilitate mutual understanding of relative languages. So English and French are similar, and when learning French, knowledge around English can be utilized. In other words, learners can use the known information for the unknown. It is imperative to maintain transversality between two different languages. Now let's look at the linguistic structures. Having learned English and French, you may have an impression that articles always come immediately before a noun. The third column is Romanian. Can you tell which part is the article? We don't use articles in the Japanese language, but foreign languages you have learned, such as English and French, use articles. In English and in French, articles are placed before nouns. So we tend to think that articles are always before the nouns. In Romanian, however, the article is placed after the noun. You can see how they are different here. Hence, you can be exposed to diversity in language structures. So it's not really about learning Romanian as a foreign language. The key here is to make a comparison between a foreign language you have learned, and a language you haven't learned. By doing so, you can learn that languages can have very different syntax. Different languages have different linguistic structures. The goal here is to discover and appreciate the differences between the languages. Another important aspect is to transfer the already acquired knowledge. What language is the second sentence written in? The second line is a translation of the first line. And the question is, which language is used in the second line? And the students are encouraged to consider why they believe the translation was in that language. It may also be interesting to ask what they think is the title of the story. So why do we encourage students to think about a language they have never learned? It goes back to what I have said previously. It is a comparison between a known language and an unknown language. The second line is written in Italian, and it's a translation from The Little Prince. Observing closely, you can see which part corresponds to which part in another sentence. By utilizing their knowledge in a known language, you can make a pretty good guess in a similar language, which is not learned. This is a practical example of linking different languages. I have covered multilingualism and curriculum in my presentation today. Multilingualism is not limited to learning several languages. It is imperative to integrate all the skills and knowledge between and across these languages. With that in mind, I have discussed plurilingualism and shared with you several pedagogical approaches. So I really encourage you to see the skills and knowledge you have gained through previous foreign language learning when you take up the challenge of learning another language. This concludes my presentation on multilingualism and curriculum. Thank you very much for your attention.